Hi everyone, welcome back to Flow State Podcast. You might notice it's not Luke on the other end of the phone, it's Adam. We're recording a special today on what day are we on? Monday. Usually, as everyone knows, we record on a Friday morning, myself and Luke, but this week just looks a little bit different. We adjusted things. There'll be an episode coming out this week with Luke on his own. And today we have a bit of a special with one of my own crop of athletes that I've been working together with over the last number of months. Mr. Paulo Ross. So very welcome, very good welcome to you, Paulo. For anyone that doesn't know, which I highly doubt in this country, Paulo is the host of the Primetime Breakfast Show on Cool FM, co-host with Pete and Rebecca in the mornings. So very welcome to you, Paulo. It's lovely to have you on and lovely to have a chat with you. How's things?
Hi, Adam. Firstly, thanks for inviting us on. And I still find it weird that you call us athletes in your client base. Yeah. I am good, Adam. So we just did the marathon 2 to 3 weeks ago in Amsterdam. So still sort of recovering and sort of keeping things low intensity at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the marathon. We absolutely will get to the marathon. There's no doubt about that, because you didn't just run your first marathon in Amsterdam, but you absolutely smashed it. And I've been showing off your splits to many people that kind of have been looking at running marathons and how to execute the marathon well. You knocked it out of the park, and we'll definitely come to that. But I suppose, and again, I said this to you off air just now, but I feel like a real fraud here. I feel like I'm teaching my granny how to suck eggs, because you're the man that's usually on the other end of the microphone, and I'm the absolute amateur here in this setting. So I definitely feel a bit awkward being the kind of main host where Luke normally takes the reins, but also having a guy that actually works on the radio. So excuse me, everyone, if I sound if it's sort of a little bit awkward, a little bit embarrassed.
Well, I've never actually been on a podcast before, Adam. So this is the first podcast I've ever been on. And I have been following your podcast with Luke. You're doing a brilliant job. I've listened to, I think, 5 or 6 of them now. So a big fan of them. Listen every week. And I'll not call you Pete then. I'll just need to keep looking at the screen here. It's Adam.
Yeah, it's definitely Adam. I have a face for radio. But no, so I suppose I'd love to kick things off, Paulo, by, I suppose, I know a fair bit about you because we've been working together, coach and athlete. I'll just reiterate. I call everyone athletes that I work with, because for me, and genuinely mean this, like anyone that's chasing their potential as a runner is an athlete as far as I'm concerned. I think the day-to-day athlete has a bigger challenge on their hands than the professional athletes. We're not living at altitude. We're not living, sleeping, and eating, training. We have families, we have lives, we have jobs, we have so many more things to juggle, and that for me is actually more tricky than someone that is simply training, eating, and sleeping. So yeah, you guys are absolutely athletes. I'll just reiterate that again. But yeah, I suppose for anyone that doesn't know you, could you give us a little bit of a background into who you are, what makes you tick, and a little bit about the day-to-day and the day job on the radio?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Paulo. I've been doing the Cool FM breakfast show every morning now. I think it's coming on 12 years, which is just mad. Time absolutely flies. But yeah, outside of work, I'm a massive sort of fitness advocate. In my journey into fitness and exercise sort of began 7 or 8 years ago when I just got this bug for hiking the Mourne Mountains. So they called me on the show Mourne Man. That was my first fitness persona, which is then turned into Mourne Man, turned into Iron Man, turned into Marathon Man, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But yeah, I loved hiking the Mournes every weekend. Actually became a bit of an addiction. So I used to go up Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and then I had to catch myself on. I was like, I'm going to sick of myself with too good of a thing here. But yeah, I hiked the Mournes for years. Just love making the most of the beauty that's on our doorstep. Like days when there's just blue sky, winter sunshine. It's just great escapism, great exercise as well, and you're having fun while you're exercising. So that was my first sort of journey into fitness, and then I joined CrossFit about 3 or 4 years ago. So I've been doing a little bit of CrossFit as well as hiking. and that's mainly it. A few 5K Victoria Park runs, and some 10Ks occasionally. But actually, about a year ago, the furthest I'd ever run was 10 kilometers. That was it a year ago. So very much hiker, CrossFit, and a wee bit of 5K park runs.
Wow. And just to go back before, I guess, the Morns and Mornman, were you into sport as a youngster? Were you sporty as a child through school?
Actually, no. So I only really found sport a lot later into my late 20s. Um, I was put off massively by sport whenever I was in school at a younger age. So I don't think I was particularly good at anything. So obviously I went to an all boys school. There was a lot of great soccer players there, a lot of great Gaelic players there. I just wasn't good at it. And I used to dread PE. I think I was one of the kids who used to have a fake sick note to say that I couldn't do PE for X, Y, Z reasons. You're sincerely Brian Ross when it wasn't my dad singing it. I chose ICT, ditched PE whenever I was 13. Didn't take it on for a GCSE. I was kind of not the cool sort of exercise fitness kid, and kind of hated it at a young age, but grew into loving it in my late 20s.
Yeah. Wow. And just on that, I think it's a big misconception. And for anyone that doesn't know, Paulo ran his first marathon in 2:51:53,
Oh, you
23.
do me a disservice there. It was 18 seconds, Alan. 2:51:18, I think. Or
Sorry.
23. 23, you're right, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 23. 2:51:23. I hope I'm right on that. But I had 23 and 53 in my head, but I think it was 23. You're the man. You're the man that's gonna correct me. But yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, Paulo ran his first marathon in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago now in 2 hours 51 minutes and 23 seconds, which is outstanding. To do that in your first marathon. And I think a lot of people have this misconception about running and the marathon and doing well, quote unquote well. That's obviously it's perception. How good is well. It's up to the individual. But I think people have this misconception that you have to be an ex soccer player, or you have to play GAA your whole childhood, or whatever your sport was. You had to be particularly good at it in order to excel in distance running as an adult. And like you, yes, I was sporty as a youngster, but I was never quote unquote one of the fitter guys. And I just really want to highlight that point that you have performed exceptionally well with no massive base of sport as a child. And I think that's something that everyone can kind of definitely a lesson that can be taken. And I definitely think a lot of people can draw some inspiration from that, that massive things can be achieved despite maybe thinking you don't necessarily have the best start. What it also can mean is I guess you come to the sport with, or come to sport in general with a different mindset. It's novel, it's new, it's more exciting, it's fun. I think when you've played sport as a child, particularly those that do play at a high level throughout their sort of childhood and teenage years and into maybe young adulthood, you can become quite sickened of the routine and of the I see a lot of young athletes that fall out of love with sport in general, not just their sport, but all sport, and they become kind of distanced from it quite early. So I think there's a lot to be said for that novelty factor as well. And again, like I see it a lot with not just yourself, but other athletes that come, they're excited by it, they apply themselves, they do the work, they listen, and they get the results. So yeah, just an incredible achievement to do that in your first marathon, with a massive background in sport and some CrossFit for about 5 years like you. I ran my first marathon in Dublin in 3 hours and 13 minutes. So you didn't just smash Harry Styles, which was the running joke on Cool FM, but you smashed me. And my first marathon in Dublin, I had a pretty rough last 10, 12, 13 kilometers that day. So yeah, you absolutely nailed it. I mean, we'll come on to the marathon and the actual day itself in Amsterdam and how that went in a bit. But I suppose when did marathon running come onto your radar first? Kind of what was the why? What made you want to tackle the marathon, Paulo?
I think mostly I love every year doing something that challenges me to do something different. whether that's, you know, going to a new place or a new country that I've never been to before, whether it's kind of taking up a new sport or fitness challenge. So 2025 for me was exploring triathlon. I'd always had a CrossFit background. Dad was a big triathlete. He's done multiple Ironman. And I kind of thought, well, do you know what? I want to give this a go. I'd love to. Well, I went out to watch a couple of friends and my dad take part in the 70.3 in Nice. I was completely inspired by the triathlete world. And I went away from that event in Nice thinking, I want to learn how to be able to pull on a wetsuit, you know, swim 2,000 meters, bike 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers, and then go and run a half marathon. And I love the whole atmosphere and vibe around the triathlon community. You know, when the guys are crossing the line, it's not a case of, well, what was your time? In fact, the entire weekend, that question was never asked. I thought I'd love to get involved with this and learn these new skills. So this year was the year of learning how to swim, learning how to front crawl, learning to get comfortable with being out road biking. And then towards the end of the year, I said to myself, you know what, I'm 35. I'm not getting any younger. And I'm probably going to have to take off a bucket list marathon at some point and just do one so that, you know, I can say I've done one, literally just as a box ticker, because it's going to be a lot easier on myself at 35 than 55 whenever I eventually get this notion years down the line, let's do a marathon. I'm 53. So it's kinder on yourself when you've got a bit of fitness in your 30s to do it then.
Cool. I'm with you. When you mentioned like going and seeing an event and seeing the guys at the front and the quote unquote real athletes, there's something very inspirational and very cool about that. I think fitness is cool. Maybe I'm weird, but when I see someone that is capable of doing amazing things with their body, I'm very inspired. It's definitely, it ticks that cool box in my brain, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even in terms of like, when it comes to triathlon, the guys who are out in the field doing 15, 16-hour Ironmen, you know, it's celebrated as much as the guys who came in sub 10 hours. In fact, it's celebrated more. You've been out on that course for longer. This has been more grueling and challenging for you than it has been for the athletic pros. And the fact that that's celebrated massively too, sort of maybe when I get into it. And the same comes with marathon. You know, those running a 4, 5, 6 hour marathon. That could be as grueling, if not more grueling, than some of us guys who can run one in 3, 4 hours.
No question about it. Absolutely no question about it. And that is one of the beauties about the endurance community, I guess, is there is that level of mutual respect and celebration for front, mid, and backpackers. And it should be celebrated because we are all out there completing the same race distance. And like you said, the sort of back people at the back of the pack are out there for so much longer and potentially in a much hotter period of the day and experiencing many issues that we are not even forced to deal with, sort of towards the mid and the front of the pack. So it's one of the really cool and unique things about this sport. I think the other thing is that we also get to share an event with elites. You know, we get to share the same course, the same pitch isn't the right word because we're not on a pitch, we're not on a football pitch, but the same. I can't think of the right word. We get to share the same event and
Tarmac.
Yeah, we get to share the same tarmac. We get to do the exact same event as the best in the world and just maybe an hour or so behind. But it's really cool, and I think that is one of the most amazing things about running. For me, it certainly is. But yeah, what was your initial relationship with running like before we started to work together, before the structure that we began to introduce? Because you had done some races and I remember speaking about a race that you did in London and how we were going to kind of use that as our catapult to kind of progress into training. And that was sort of one of the key things that I focused on when I started to coach you, and how you'd ran that and how you'd executed that race and how we were going to take that forward. But yeah, what was your sort of initial relationship with running itself before we started to work together?
It was totally wrong. Absolutely totally wrong. So I was just the guy that went out and smashed 5K PBs every Saturday. And that was the only type of running that I was interested in or doing. I was like, okay, we're in out in 20 some odd minutes. This is great. And obviously then high heart rate came with that. I wasn't, conditioning my body into lower heart rate, longer distance endurance running. I went out and did a 10K once, just a 10K festival race in Hourglass. Smashed it. I think it was like 42 minutes or something. But as I looked at my heart rate data on Garmin after, my heart rate was 202 the entire race. From the first 30 seconds to the last 30 seconds, it was at over 200. So much so that I had to go to A&E after the race
Oh,
for a bit
wow.
of a checkup. And I got talking to an experienced runner after the race there, and they'd said, you're good, but you're at zone 5 here. The entire race, you need to condition yourself and run. Introduce some variety into running, do the zone 2, do the longer distances. So then, obviously, Adam and I started to work with you. We stripped it right back, and we started to introduce longer, just 1 hour, low zone 2 heart rate runs, build up some distance, be able to let your heart be able to trust it in its different zones. Because I guess coming from a CrossFit background, we only ever sort of go into workouts and send them. It's completely threshold the entire session, especially when it comes to the WODs at the end. So I feel like your heart rate only really knows one gear. It's straight into gear 6, zone 5. And with running, you really do need to focus on building that base and conditioning your body to be able to run. So going out and doing those 5Ks every week, it's 20 minutes, wasn't really benefiting me at all.
Yeah. Um, you've learned a lot. You definitely have, and that's really cool to see from my perspective. But I don't want to take all the credit because you've you've kind of taught yourself a lot, and I think you learn through doing as well, and through sort of the validation in that process. But I do also remember you mentioning like CrossFit workouts that you were doing at the time, and you were starting to really learn how to pace yourself. I think you had used your intuition at the beginning, um, because I remember you saying you were doing some longer WODs where there was guys that were just going out, big egos, flying through the first 5 minutes of the workout and then dying a death for 30 or 40 minutes at the end. I remember doing the exact same in CrossFit workouts. You have to use your brain, particularly when it comes to those longer events. And I think you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned almost preferring those um, longer workouts because you could use the brain and you could be quite smart about it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the longer duration WODs is kind of always where I thrived. So anything over 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even 50 minutes, I would have looked at on the board and would have been like, I'm going that day. Because a lot of people weren't kind of aware of pacing. As you said, a lot of girls would come up straight out off the blocks, go and run, 350 kilometers, the first 1,000 meters, and then go onto the ski erg. And that's grand for about 10, 11 minutes. And then obviously you've just miserably paced it wrong and you completely sort of flatline. So it's you kind of know at a point at 20, 25 minutes, if you're pacing yourself right, you will catch up with the rest of the group and then maybe overtake some of them minute 35 if you're pacing yourself. And that's sort of exactly the same when it came to running then, to have that knowledge of, okay, hold back, and then push and give more towards the end if you've got it in the tank, and be disciplined to not come out of the blocks really, really hot. I did High Rocks in Dublin as well, but a year ago, High Rocks doubles, and some of the paces they come out of the starting blocks at
Yeah.
is insane. And you're halfway through the workout, you get to the burpee broad jumps, and it's like, oh, I'm nearly up to you now. So yeah, pacing is key. It's so important.
Yeah, and I guess that's what kind of makes you a really good endurance athlete, is that sort of natural want or ability to kind of use your brain and pace and not get carried away with the guys and the girls at the start. And that comes from for me anyway, like losing that sense of ego and not getting carried up in the race. And yeah, like just to reiterate, that is one of the main reasons why you've achieved such an amazing result. Um, and it's why sort of any athlete that applies that sort of concept well will achieve their potential. Not just in distance running races, but you also just mentioned in the High Rocks world. And as a running coach, High Rocks has really came onto my radar over the last couple of years. And it's an endurance event. It's generally for non-elites. You're out there for over an hour. And if you're not doing doubles, then you're not breaking it up into intervals. We are getting that rest period. It's absolutely, it's like running a half marathon. And if you do not pace yourself well from the beginning, you're just going to have an absolute nightmare. And yeah, we see it a lot where people are getting 10 to 15 minutes in, and they're just, I always say you've blown a gasket. And
Yeah.
it's not a very good, it's not a very, two things, it's not an enjoyable race, and you don't race to your potential. You don't fulfill what you're actually what your fitness is capable of doing, you know.
Absolutely. And it's even the knowledge of dipping into a few of those different sports, the CrossFit, the Hyrox, the triathlon world, then bringing that, what you've learned from that into marathon, it's like massively benefited me too. Just, trying a bit of everything. And true sort of cross training, so to speak.
Cool. Um, okay. I sort of want to move on to then, I suppose, when we started to formally work together and start with some programming and some training. And I distinctly remember when we started to speak, our first sort of consultation was like, this is the situation. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I think it was at the end of May, beginning of June when we started. And one of the big things that we highlighted was I've actually written it down here because I always forget the name, but the osteochondral defect, which is basically like an ankle issue. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's like ankle impingement in sports terms. So I've carried this niggle for years. It's basically the cartilage in my right ankle is just softer, and it wears out quicker than the average maybe 35-year-olds. So I got to be cautious with it. There's only so much tread left on that tire, so to speak, and there's nothing they can really do as yet for cartilage. You can't just take it out and put a new set of tires on. So it's just about managing that long term, and that's sort of why I wanted to do a marathon, and get that ticked off my list, because I'm not sure in 5-6 years time if I'd be capable of doing it with that ankle impingement. So when I'm fit, healthy, and it's not causing me too much bother, it was good to get it done.
Yeah, that was definitely the first thing that really, for me, was like the thing that we needed to focus on, was managing, managing that, staying healthy, but also training you appropriately to run a marathon, and those two things, the marathon is all about durability, it's all about fatigue resistance, it's all about getting the miles in, and getting those specific sessions done, but also managing this ankle impingement was something that for me was definitely a challenge, and something that I thought quite a lot about at the beginning was, okay, how am I really going to help Paulo build this durability, build this fatigue resistance, considering he hasn't ran a marathon? Because it's different when you ran a marathon, you kind of have a real element of durability because you've done it. We were going into new territory, and we also had this problem, or this thing to overcome, which is, for me as a coach, it's great. I kind of love to problem solve.
I went to one orthopedic surgeon, and he told me, never run a running race in your life. Stick to swimming, stick to cycling. It's part of the reasons why I got into triathlon as well. I thought, okay, before I'm forced to, be more of a low impact endurance athlete, let's learn how to do this in case in a couple of years' time I'm forced to only be able to, run and swim, cycle and swim. So, but yeah, the orthopedic surgeon had said, you'll never do a marathon. So then I went and paid another 150 quid privately to go to another orthopedic surgeon,
You
and
just wanted that green light.
they told me the same thing. They told me it's not a good idea to run a marathon, but I get the reason, with MRIs and it's important for them to give me a clear picture on that. But to me, it's also how your own body feels. Are you in any pain? Do you feel inflammation? And any time that did sort of happen on any of the runs, which was twice in our training block, I basically just iced it up. I took my anti-inflammatories, my naproxen, we stripped back the miles for 48 hours, and it recovers pretty quickly, 2 or 3 days if no impact. And it recovers. But during any of the half marathons we did, or the full marathon in Amsterdam, it never really was an issue. So I'm glad we've got that box ticked.
Do those surgeons have you on Strava or Instagram or anything?
I hope
Have,
not.
have, have they have they seen the race result, or did they listen to the show? Have they been listening along?
You should always follow medical advice, everybody.
Yeah.
Always follow medical advice.
Yeah, this is we are.
Apart from if it's something you really want to do.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be said for that too, from a health and wellness perspective, mentally and physically. So, yeah, listen, we'll not go down that rabbit hole too far. We got it done. You smashed it. I want to come to the race eventually, but it was definitely something for me that I really thought about because, like I mentioned, getting that, building the elements of your fitness and managing that was definitely big, um, and tricky for sure, because my focus was really switched from, okay, we're not just going to build Paulo's miles, because running lots and lots of miles is going to break your body down fairly quick because of the impingement. But I thought to myself, right, well, how can we think about the acute training load and think about really dialing in on your specific sessions and getting those as spot on as possible? And to be honest, like working with you in this block has kind of anecdotally taught me a lot, um, about alternative methods in preparing athletes. Like there are many roads to Rome, and I think if you're a coach that thinks there's only one philosophy and one way to do things, you're very much like setting yourself up for failure. And I wouldn't say I've learned that, but I've definitely got evidence of that now. Um, More evidence of that now, which is great. I really did think about those specific sessions, and I know you enjoyed some of those specific sessions. I seen you flying around Craigavon Lakes a couple of times, and like watching you was great to see, because there was an efficiency to your running, which I really liked, and knew when I seen that was going to be again conducive to running well in the marathon, because efficiency is a massive thing as you fatigue particularly. Um, Yes, so to sort of start touching on the training, we started to work quite cautiously, beginning of June. We got you out for some easy runs to begin, but very quickly we did introduce some more like not just threshold workouts, but actually we got into the kind of the longer miles quite quickly, and then we really recovered outside of those, didn't we? We took sort of 2, 3, even sometimes more days off from running after those sessions, and early as well. So we weren't doing like the 60 minutes easy on a Monday, the session on a Tuesday, then maybe 60 minutes on a Wednesday, maybe another training session on a Thursday, followed by maybe a recovery on a Friday or a swim, then a long run on Saturday, and then maybe an easy jog on a Sunday. We absolutely were not following that kind of typical marathon training split that a lot of people like to do. Um, we were very much doing at times one and even two runs a week.
Well, from what you could see, I could have blocked you in Strava.
Mate,
No,
I see everything. Trust me.
we started. It was started quite. It was a gentle approach, but a really sort of efficient, tailored marathon approach. So, not to call it sort of junk miles at the start, but it was just to sort of see, if I run 40, 50 kilometers a week for the first time in my life, what will happen? Will the ankle impinge? Will this cause us bother? Where's the training going to sit? So, but it did feel, even though we were maybe only running once every 3 days at the start, they were really good quality marathon specific runs that actually built up a bit of confidence quite quickly too.
Yeah. And you had, again, just to touch on it as well, like you also not only came in to marathon training with the CrossFit, but you'd also done quite a few endurance events, particularly the triathlon. And we used the base of that aerobic development that you already had gained in the last, like, let's say, year to 2 years through that period of time. And that then kind of meant, as long as with the caveat that we could keep the ankle healthy and keep the musculoskeletal system healthy, that aerobic and that, like, I always kind of coin it sort of like metabolic health was already almost taken care of. And we could start layering the little bits on top of that. So that's something that I think is important to acknowledge as well for anyone that's listening and thinks, oh, I can just go out and do 2 marathon specific sessions a week and I'll be grand. You've got to have that base, which you had developed massively through your cycling, through your swimming. Basically, hours and hours and hours of low intensity training, which was really well developed.
Yeah, we were out in the summer. I'd done my 70.3s, half Ironman in May in Mallorca. Then most of June and July sort of spent long zone 2 bike rides, long 1 hour 20 minute zone 2 swims. So there was a bit of a base then going into starting our program in June and July off the back of that half distance triathlon, which helped massively.
Yeah. And I suppose then, what was your approach to recovery? I know you mentioned about the ankle and ice, but even just from a fatigue perspective with the early mornings, because you're up at Skregadon. 4 a.m., 4:30?
Yeah, don't get much sleep at all. It's kind of one of my downfalls. I'm about a 6 hour night man, and that needs to be more. But it's been 11 years. Still working on it.
But I
But
mean, this is great for those. Sorry to interrupt you, Paulo. Those people that have young families, busy lifestyles, busy jobs. This is where, for me, like we are so much different to those elite athletes because we are balancing less sleep and sub up, like quote unquote suboptimal living conditions, let's say, for good athletic development. So, I suppose, what was your approach, or what is your approach to kind of managing all of that?
towards the last couple of weeks of training, I did a few power naps during the day. I'd maybe do a 20 minute here and there just to catch up during the daytime hours.
I get in
Um,
big trouble with my wife when I take a power nap.
yeah, people walk through the door, and my mum would come in, her partner would come in and be like, "Oh, so you're sleeping?" I was like, "No, it's 17 minutes. I'm timing it." They think you're there all day. It's like, it's just a 15, 20 minute power nap. That sort of helped just mentally reset before going out for some of the training runs that we did that were 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. Just a bit more mental sharpness. 20 minutes is all that it took. And it felt sort of, there's a fine line with napping. It's anything over 25, 30 minutes, you're groggy and you're KO'd. Anything under, it's not enough. So I tend to just set an alarm on my phone for 24 minutes. That takes into account the 2 minutes it'll take me to get to sleep. And then it's about a 22-minute power nap. And I find it's enough just to mentally kind of reset you a little bit. And you wake up feeling like you'd slept for hours.
That's efficiency. 20,
I should just really
24
spend
minutes.
7 or 8 hours in my own bed every night instead of needing to nap during the day.
And are you popping any earplugs in? Have you got an eye mask? What's the protocol?
I'm literally that tired that I could fall asleep anywhere,
Yeah.
honestly,
Okay. Okay.
anywhere.
And you are up in the mornings at like what time? What time are you
Alarm for
up at? Okay.
5 a.m. Asleep probably for 11, I would say, maybe in
It's not
bed for
too
half
bad.
10. Mm.
It's not
Could
too.
be
It could,
better.
it could be worse. It could be better. It could be worse. Um, it's definitely not too bad, especially when you're getting that little power nap in. And then around the sessions themselves, because we were focusing on once we kind of built you up, and again, we did it quite quickly. We got you running quite on a. There's two ways to look at this. Sorry, there's one way to look at it, but I want to make sure I explain it properly. We had you running quite a high volume quickly, but a high volume, not total training. We had you running quite a high volume within a specific session. So we didn't have Paulo running 100 miles a week or 100 kilometers a week. We had Paulo running quite a big chunky session quite quickly. Because as I say, we want to develop that durability and that fatigue resistance for the marathon. But then how did you recover in and around those sessions? Because those basically the point that I'm trying to make. I'm going in a real roundabout way of explaining this, but as I do, I like the waffle. You know,
There's roundabouts in Craigavon.
I don't never end them yet. But yeah, how did you recover outside of those chunky sessions? Because they came early and they do introduce quite a lot of fatigue and they do introduce quite a lot of load on the musculoskeletal system. And again, you are dealing with an ankle impingement. So, like, was there anything in particular that you felt like you had to do in and around those sessions? I know you communicated quite closely with me. I know sometimes you were probably a bit hesitant to tell me maybe that the ankle was giving you bother because you thought I was just going to pull the training. But yeah, what did you do to kind of really like keep the body ticking, keep the body right? 'Cause I know you're a guy that is like you do stay on top of it. You're quite diligent.
Getting the food straight into me after the run, so I wouldn't have a massive appetite at all. I've definitely been an undereater, but during the training I kind of recognized that, oh, we're we've just done a 32K threshold run here. Let's I'm gonna have to eat again, and making sure that was, glycogen back in within 20 minutes of finishing the session straight away, even if it's a banana and a bagel, just getting something in you that can be converted back into glycogen, that we can start the repair process so that I'll be less sore tomorrow than what I would be if I didn't have it. And then some granola yogurt before bed. But I would also sauna like 3 times a week. I'm not sure if that had any impact at all, but I'd be religiously in the sauna for 2 lots of 15 minutes 3 times a week. So there's about a good hour in the sauna, an hour and a half a week. I love it. It's one of those places that if it gets the blood flowing, it takes fatigue out of my legs. It's great for my mental health. I go in at 6, I come out feeling an 8. And especially now, it's dark. We're in the depths of winter. The clocks have changed. It makes me feel like I'm in, Dubai for 15 minutes. But also it's a good environment to be in because it stresses the body. You get to 14, 15 minutes, you're wanting to leave, but you have to sort of stay in the room. So you have to become quickly comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And I guess in running that transfers into, when you want to slow the pace down or just end the training session, run early, it's sort of like, no, I'm used to feeling uncomfortable and wanting to quit. And it's one of those sort of things that benefited training. Then when we came to run the Amsterdam half marathon, which was back in August, it was quite a hot day. I think it was 22 degrees, and a lot of people found that a struggle because of the heat of the day. Whereas I felt really, really comfortable during Antrim. The heat wasn't a factor at all. I definitely think the sauna use and the sauna habit of a couple of times a week came in handy there too. But yeah, good feel back in, getting the glycogen, the protein, saunaing, the napping, and keeping stress low. I love that marathon bubble because anything that was stressful, I was kind of just, horse visors on. Don't let this stress me out, because if I let stress in, that's going to affect my running routine, my training, and I will get injured. I've been doing a lot of reading up on that. So it was sort of like, don't stress me out. I'm doing marathon training. And
Walking around with a
even
big t-shirt on.
it's great, even in the 12, 13, 14 week block. People don't come near you with stress because it's like, oh, he's doing hard training, just let him be. And it's like you get this ball when you're training for a marathon, which I quite enjoyed being in.
Yeah, you get treated like an elite athlete, by your family and friends. But no, I suppose three big things there. The sauna, which you actually made a really good point about that. Something I haven't really thought. I love the sauna myself, as you know, and you made a point that I haven't really thought about, which is that, like, learning to sit with that bit of discomfort, and it's just enough to kind of like make you. It's kind of like a marathon, do you know, because it's just it's like a little dial that just keeps getting turned up in the sauna. When you get that feeling of heat stress, it normally takes, depending on how sort of well adapted you are and how hot the sauna is. But for me, it's like 15 minutes. As soon as I get over that 15 minutes, I start to feel it, particularly if I've just trained and I'm coming in warm. And that is very like a marathon. It's just that, like, it's like a little monkey on your shoulder, and it just starts to whisper into your ear that it's getting uncomfortable. And it's just like the marathon. So I like that analogy, and yeah, I'm sure there's absolutely, me and Luke do chat about the sauna because we both like it, and there is a lot to be said for not just the mental benefits and the actual physical health benefits, but also that just endurance aspect to running, which I think probably a lot of people, myself included, have overlooked about sauna. But secondly, the food. Both we really did focus on glycogen and fuel during your big sessions, but particularly after as well. And that's something I see a lot of people have another misconception about, is the carbohydrates and the glycogen and protein. A lot of people think it's protein, protein, protein. We've had protein hammered down our throats for years through marketing and everything else. But ultimately, as distance runners and as people expending huge amounts of energy when we train, it's the glycogen and the carbohydrates that we really do need to focus on. And as long as you're getting enough protein, you kind of tick that box. It's all about those carbs, and they facilitate good recovery, good adaptations, and being able to continue with training. And that's something that you definitely you nailed, and sort of definitely got better with, I feel, over the course of the block. And then also the stress, like, absolutely, there's a great saying, like, a happy runner is a good runner, or a dangerous runner, or a fast runner. And I've also found exactly the same thing. I often tell people the story of when I was studying to do my teaching over in Liverpool a few years back. I was training the house down. I was running more miles than I'd ever ran, and training more than I'd ever ran, because I needed it nearly to manage my stress. But I wasn't adapting. I wasn't developing. And it's simply because I was in a really stressful period, being observed every day, being gauged every day on your progress, having infinite amounts of preparation to do at home, plus assignments. Plus, I was trying to run a bloody coaching business on top of it all. So the stress level in my life at that time was big. And I remember just feeling like my running was not progressing, and getting really frustrated about it as well. So yeah, I think it's important to note that, is that, like, if you are entering a particularly stressful period of your life, maybe running a marathon at this, maybe training and running a marathon isn't the best idea. Maybe you should focus on, like, your health and your wellness at this period of time, and then
the only time I did pick up a little quad strain on one of our training runs, and I can totally identify that with being that was the week I was most stressed out in training. Had bit of bad news the day before, couldn't shake it off. Went out and did our highest demanding threshold workout of the week, around Cookhaven Lakes, and pulled my quad. Yeah, like it was definitely down to stress. Stress is not a good thing when running, so you want to sort of get the pot to be to below boiling point, and don't let it simmer over. And definitely, I could definitely see the link between stress and injury in what we were doing for our short block.
Yeah, for sure. So before we come on to the race itself and the experience of Amsterdam, the experience of your first marathon, was there a period of marathon training or a session or a run where you felt like you had a breakthrough moment, or is there anything that you felt gave you confidence?
There was a big marathon specific session that we did, which was basically a park run short of a marathon on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock in the dark. And
No,
it
I
was
didn't
running around.
program. Hang on. I didn't program that for a Wednesday night.
No, you didn't.
Distinctly remember. I didn't tell you to go out and run 23 miles on a Wednesday night. I think there's a storm incoming.
There was a storm incoming, yeah. I'm very in tune with weather. I think I texted Adam a couple of days before and said, Adam, see this workout you've got scheduled for Saturday? It ain't happening. There's what storm are we on? It was the A or the B name. But anyway, it was like, there's 70-mile-an-hour winds on the way here, Adam. It's just not happening unless I start in Tandragee and literally run to run north with the tailwind in my back. We're not doing this. So I decided it was
Which I
one of
have
the
done,
most.
by the way.
Yeah.
I've
If you
been
get
picked
that
up at I've been picked up at Belfast International Airport before by my wife.
oh no.
Sorry to interrupt.
That storm had come in the most important, probably confidence building training session of the whole marathon block. So it was the 23 mile session, most of it at marathon pace or quicker. And it was the session that I really needed to get, green ticked and boxed off as, okay, I can do this. I can hold marathon pace for well over 2 hours, 10 minutes or 2 hours, 20 minutes, in a good block. All I need to do is, go another half an hour, 40 minutes past that. If we had to move that to the Wednesday night, it was in the dark. It was around Airport Road in Belfast. It was up and down pavements. It was raining at the time. And I thought, you know what? We could do this in the dark, in the rain, in the wet, with bit of a 30-mile-an-hour wind. Race day conditions should be much better. Race atmosphere, all those variables that are slightly more controllable in a race than around Belfast in the dark on a random Wednesday night. I thought this has been a big confidence builder. I think we can actually do this. It wasn't the case of I can run a marathon. I think by that stage we knew the distance wouldn't have been a bother, but it was that sort of goal of sub 3 hours that I'd set myself from the beginning of completing in the first one.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, also for context, which is important. 23 miles at marathon pace or slightly faster, or sections at slightly faster, isn't necessarily your typical like final session, or a session that I would maybe give everyone. It really does depend on your background and what you're doing and training, but because we could really focus on I always just come back to this acute training load, because we were managing the issue, and we weren't running every single day or taking 1 or 2 days off a week. We were only running 2-3 days a week. Hence we could do a session like that because we could really recover after it. But I do remember getting a message from you after that session, and it was a message with confidence that we can do this, and that this is well, listen, I knew you could do it because I'd seen the training, I'd seen what you'd done before that. But I think mentally that built massive amounts of confidence, and there's a lot to be said for that in training. And I just think, do you remember you doing that on the Wednesday night and finishing up at like 9 p.m. or something like that?
Yeah, it was
Then like,
9:30, bowl of granola, Greek yogurt, some honey, and straight to bed.
yeah,
Straight to bed. Who goes straight
yeah.
to bed after doing 23 miles of a run?
Well, there's nothing better. There's many Sundays I fell asleep on the sofa after a big marathon session, and haven't moved pretty much the rest of the afternoon, bar to go to the fridge and back. So yeah, first class, Paulo. I suppose now I'd love to chat about the race. I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience of not just miles 1 to 26, but I suppose like the weekend itself, the lead in. And yeah, what did Amsterdam Marathon look like through your eyes and through your brain?
So I went to a Dermot Kennedy concert in Amsterdam about 3, 4 weeks before the actual Amsterdam race. I'd never been to Amsterdam in my life. So there I was a month before going, oh, this is like
Taster session.
yeah. So this is what Amsterdam, and I could see people out training, local Dutch people sort of training for it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be back here in 4 weeks running a marathon. People had thought on Strava, like a Strava to 10K walk, and they thought I was going out to recce the course. So I was taking it that seriously. I was like, no, I'm here on holidays. But yeah, it's such a brilliant city to do a first marathon in, a really well organized race, fantastic public transport system, perfect climate, 13 degrees around their marathon time of year. Very lucky it didn't get any wind on the day. And a very sort of, flattish race, one of the flattest that you can do. But it's sort of, I can be honest, enjoy the journey of the training better than the actual event itself. Like for me, it's the 12, 14 weeks of training with a training partner doing it that ticked my boxes. That journey, that experience. The race is sort of, okay, we have to go and do this now. But I didn't get as much of a buzz off actually doing the race than the training. The end of the race was like, oh, that's it done. It's a bit of an anticlimax. Oh, we got the time we wanted, but I wish I could go back and start the training all over again. That was so much fun. And sort of that sad lingering feeling, especially when the race was finished. I get text you after to say, Adam, these post-marathon blues are real. They're
Yeah, they
honestly
hit you hard,
serious.
didn't they?
They hit you hard. Like I've finished some triathlons and stuff before, and I didn't get as much of post-race blues from doing the half Ironman, but the after doing the marathon, I was quite down for a couple of days. Too, just wanting to train again and get back to that routine of training that makes you feel so strong, so fit, so healthy, so good.
Yeah, nothing beats that. I'm absolutely with you. And like again, you always hear of Olympic athletes say that after they've won a gold medal, the last 4 years of the purpose and the building and the training partners and the camaraderie and the crack and everything else, and then you just do this event at the end, and you're like, is that it?
What's next?
um,
All of
yeah,
that.
well, yeah, but you're, and I said this to you because you executed so well and you achieved an outstanding result. The low in the week afterwards can be even worse, because the high has been a little bit higher than maybe if you didn't, experience things brilliantly. But um, yeah, and I think that's the way you want to be in as an endurance athlete. For me, it is for sure. Like if you find joy in that everyday process, like I mean, for me, the joy is the most important thing in the training because that's sustainable and keeps you consistent, and the consistent is what leads to the result at the end. But I mean, we spend 99.9% of our time in the process, and the 0.1% is the race. And like, I think every athlete's goal should actually be to find enjoyment in their process. The goal will look after itself, and that's only a very small cherry on top. Finding that enjoyment is everything. And yeah, you have to sit with that low afterwards, and that is just again, it's part of the process. Uh, Pardon the cliche, but it is, and it passes. But finding that huge amount of joy in the process for me as both an athlete and a coach is the most important thing. And feeling that way that you described is is what it's all about in the process itself. But I don't want to brush over the race too much, or sorry, I don't want to brush over the race too quickly. Because I shared your splits on Instagram afterwards, and the reason that I did that was because you ran what I would coin pretty much a perfect race. Um, and it's really difficult to do that in the marathon. And I want to reiterate that because the marathon's a beast. It requires a set of skills from both a fitness perspective and a mental perspective. It also takes like I said, dropping that ego to the side and pacing it really well and really smartly and being intelligent about it. And to do it in your first go at the distance is like, it's kind of unheard of, to be totally honest. So the fact that you did that, like, I do want to touch on it. So for the people that didn't see that sort of that Instagram story that I shared with Paulo Splits, or haven't been stalking you on Strava. I advise you to maybe go do that. Maybe we'll link it somewhere where we can go, where
It's
you can actually.
quite boring. I was playing tennis the other night.
But essentially what happened is you started around like 408, 407, 4, is that right? 407, 408 per K pace.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
that's it.
finished the race during the last 10K, you were hitting something like 350s. Right. I hope I'm not
Yeah,
butchering this. I really should have done my prep here because I am your coach and I should know this. But from memory, you were finishing in the 350s, and basically in the last 10 kilometers when most people are falling apart massively. I actually just put a little post on Instagram about like executing the marathon well today. But when most people are falling apart and death marching their way to the finish, you were like Sonic the Hedgehog, just picking off coins and just flying past people. Which is how you execute a marathon to your potential, which is the thing that it's the kind of way I always coin it. Not running fast, not running whatever, doing your best and, running your fastest. So, yeah, like, how did that feel? And could you talk me through the race in like maybe 3 or 4 sections? How did you manage that in both the brain, and how did you actually do that? Because I think listeners want to hear that. I think people want to know like exactly how do I run the race of my dreams? How do I do it?
so, yeah, when I arrived to Amsterdam, one of the first things I did, well, my biggest concern during the race was, obviously needing to stop to go to the toilet, hoping everything works on race day fine. You get rid of what you need to, and you just have a smooth race, a smooth, comfortable race. Um, and my routine wouldn't be to go normally in the morning time; it would be afternoon. So in the days previous, I was waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I was getting my 100 grams of carb in, bit of caffeine, and then sort of sorting that out quite early in the morning, in the hope that when it got to race day, you woke up in Amsterdam 5 a.m., carried out the same routine, everything would go smoothly, and it did. And the joy that brings you when you're able to like do what you need to do and know that, okay, it's not likely to affect you during the race now. Tick, we're over the first hurdle of today, on to the next thing. So then you go and find your pen, and if you've never done a marathon before, it could be quite overwhelming during your first marathon, especially a big city one like Amsterdam and in another country. It's like, where do I find the pen? What color? There's a yellow, there's a wave number. What does this mean? But I've always been disciplined in triathlons to arrive early and give yourself more time than what you need. So I was up 4 hours before the race on marathon day morning, and I was making my way over to the pen just about an hour before. I got some old hoodies that I could put into the charity bins. Made sure it was warm, had gloves on, and basically was in the pen for about half an hour before the start of the shotgun. Then it's really hard because when the gun goes, everybody just goes past you, and you're thinking, I'm a good fast runner here. Maybe I should go at their speed too. But through everything I've kind of been reading and what you've coached me, it's important to run your race. And my race was to stay, between 405, 408 for the first 32K, and then, as in Adam's own words, when you get to 32K, you have a license to do whatever you want. We can problem manage issues from there. So so I tried to keep the first 32K to 404 to 408, something I feel comfortable, running at. That wasn't too. It was comfortably hard. It still left some reserve in the tank to be able to push out a fast 10K at the end, and that was our strategy. It was the negative split strategy. It was start slower than what we were going to finish, and it just really clicked. It really worked, but it's so hard because you got to be disciplined to let hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people fly past you at the beginning of the race, and it can really get into your head thinking that you're not having the day that you're having, and it can really play mind games on you. There's a chimp at your shoulder that's basically saying, pick up the pace, stay with him, he looks to my ability, I could run the same pace as him, stay on his heels. Doing that, I knew I would burn out by 30K. It's so important to keep yourself fresh for the last 10K of the race, which is the part that most people struggle with.
Yeah, and I think most people start to learn that after they've ran a few marathons, but to then have the discipline to just listen to the advice, but to do it is yeah, it's incredible because it's so easy when you're carb loaded, when you're tapered, when the adrenaline's flowing through your system, you've got the alpha flies on your feet, you're feeling amazing to run just a little bit too quick. Oh, I'll just run 3 seconds a K quick here. I'll run 4 seconds a K, 5 seconds. Maybe I can run 3:59s. Maybe I can run 4 minute Ks. But having the discipline just to sit at your pace and do your thing and sit on the sofa until you reach that 32K is just like that is the marathon. And what you can then do if you're two things disciplined, but also trained in a certain way, because we did do a little bit of progression running where we practiced like getting faster towards the end and teaching you that skill, like that leads to the marathon result that you had. And I know like you kind of had the goal in your head of around like 2:55, 2:54, and like you
Just delighted with 3 hours. I thought
well, that was
anything
the original
under.
goal. You know, that was the plan originally, wasn't it? Was 3 hours. And like I knew that seeing your training and seeing how you were developing, that there was much more in you. Um, and I also think that's a great way to approach the marathon is with that kind of not a lack of confidence, that's the wrong way to describe it, but the opposite of I'm gonna go and run 2:48, 2:47 in my first marathon. Being good marathon runners are more conservative. And I have this sort of I have this like I think I mentioned this to you before, this theory in my brain. I hope I don't rub anyone up the wrong way by saying this, but I've watched lots of people run marathons, and anytime I go to watch a marathon, I stand at like 24 miles, 25 miles, right whenever people are really meeting God. And
It's a
unless
term.
unless you get it right, people are meeting God at 24, 25 miles of a marathon, typically when they're death marching, when things are really, really, really tough. And in my experience, female athletes tend to be better at running to their potential in the marathon. And I think me and Luke discussed this before, and I believe it's because of less ego, typically having slightly maybe less confidence, but I like to say less ego, because I think males generally, not all by the way, but generally males have this thing where they're very competitive and believe that they can maybe go faster than where their physiology and their fitness actually is. Females are kind of like the opposite. They generally, again, we have people at all ends of the spectrum, but I see females have maybe a little bit less confidence, less ego, and think they can maybe go slower than what they're actually capable of. And that is conducive to good marathon running, because then you get to 32K and you go, my goodness, like I've got wheels here and I can finish this race fast. And like I said to you, you have a license at that point to run as fast as you like. I never give people a pace to run at 32, 33K, because at that point, you mentioned it there, you're problem solving your way to the finish. You could have a hamstring that's on the edge of cramp that you have to maybe shorten your stride a little bit. You could have a gut that's not playing ball. You might be breathing, your breathing might be out of sync. So it's all about, you know, how fast do you feel like you can run that final 10 kilometers in? Um, and it went absolutely swimmingly for you, and you absolutely flew home and came home, and yeah, like 2:51, which is just, it's outstanding.
So I keep being told. I just want to go back to training and doing it all over again.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Well,
was it was
that's pretty cool. Uh, where do you see yourself going next, Paulo? I know you sent me a screenshot the other day, and I was actually really impressed with your outline of how you were thinking about things from sort of a medium to long term basis. Um, what is the next, like, let's say post marathon to Christmas? What's that looking like? And then let's go beyond that. What does that look like, short, medium, long term?
so right now it's just having fun. Doing things because you want to do them, not because you have to do them or they're on a plan. Because there's going to be more of that coming up in 2026. So at the minute, like tonight's just a little half an hour, 40 minutes high rocks wad with my mate in the gym. We'll do a few spins on the watt bike. It's just an indoor bicycle trainer, which set its own 2 out for an hour, especially when the weather's kind of dark and dreary. We'll do few thresholds on that. Some swimming, learning how to swim. I absolutely love swimming now. Not very good at it, but I love it. Especially for those days that we love exercising every day. And it's one of those exercises you can implement into a recovery day that actually doesn't take too much from you. I feel replenished after a swim. And I still feel like I'm getting fitter swimming too. There's lots of things with swimming that's just so underrated. It's an hour in zone 2 with no impact on your body. You're increasing your lung capacity. You can't breathe under the water and running. You need a good set of lungs on you too. And I love swimming, so I'm going to up the swimming between now and Christmas. Focus on technique in that. Get a few swimming toys for the pool, which they're like flippers. Some people swim with a snorkel, so you can focus on your catch, your
So
pool.
you're not getting like a unicorn float or anything like that?
No unicorn float, but there is a whole array. If you pop into Decathlon, you'll be able to see there's a whole section of these toys that you bring into the swimming pool to better your swim. So there's that. Then next year the big thing is Ironman. It'll be the full distance Ironman, which we've booked for Austria for June time. So we'll start to do a bit of training for that from January onwards. And then maybe look at another marathon before the end of next year, because a lot of triathletes will do that. They build a massive aerobic base over the summertime doing triathlons and training, and we're all out maybe doing 4, 5, 6 hour bike rides on a Saturday. So when that season comes to an end in September, October, it makes sense to transfer that across to a race, or start to then think of tailoring your training to being running race specific, and using that increased VO2 max from over the summer and the massive aerobic base that you've built. And it gives you something to look forward to before the end of the year, as opposed to your season just being pulled from underneath you in the 1st of September. You're able to extend it a little bit. So you'll find that most triathletes tend to do their marathons October to Christmas. So like the likes of Dublin, or some people go for a winter sunshine one in November and December. I said it was going to be one and done, but we've done so flippingly well, and I felt okay finishing.
The marathon bug has bitten.
I don't know about that. A bug has bitten, so my stomach hasn't been right since we started to I've had stomach issues now for a while after this. It's been 2 weeks, so I'm still struggling in that department. So we'll see how quickly that kind of clears up, and then maybe look at, I've signed up for the lottery for Berlin. And this is the other thing, we've qualified for some of the time that we got is qualified for some of the majors. The London ballot closed last week. We were able to have a go at that. I think it even gets a Chicago and a Boston time. But Ironman 2026, do another marathon before the end of the year, possibly Berlin or Valencia. And then maybe just do one of the majors in 2027 if we qualify and get a good time, for experience. So, not for, a sub 3, just, okay, we're in New York, we're in Chicago, we're in Boston here. This is soak it up, settle into your 3:15, 3:20 marathon for the atmosphere, and just enjoy it without setting a ridiculous time, treat it as a different type of marathon, an experience marathon. I heard Paris is really good as well for that. It's one of the liveliest marathons.
I think it's around St. Patrick's Day, I think, maybe in March.
Yeah, and I'd like to. I don't think doing marathons as quick as you can do them, all the time is a good thing either. I definitely, I think I can do one better and do a little bit quicker, but after that it would just be purely for the experience, of doing them. There will be a marathon in the Ironman as well, which is coming up in June, which you keep forgetting about. So there is a marathon in June after 180 kilometers on a bike and after a 4-kilometer swim. So that's still another marathon. Adam unfortunately doesn't do triathlon coaching, otherwise we could extend our training here.
Yeah, well, we're kind of having a bit of a collaboration project at the minute, because you've been giving me some swim tips recently. I've been in the pool a bit, and we're going to get a swim hopefully together over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, you've been maybe triathlon coaching could be a branch of AS coaching in the future. I don't think so. I absolutely don't think so. I'm very much being led by your expertise in the pool at the minute.
Every Instagram reel I see to do with swimming now, I'm like, yep, forward to Adam.
I'm loving it. I actually went to the pool yesterday afternoon. I couldn't resist. We came home from holiday, and I hadn't been doing any like proper swimming on holiday. I've been in the sea doing just a bit of faffing about, but got in the pool yesterday and felt unbelievable. Do you know when you've rested and mate, I just felt like an Olympic athlete. I was like, something's clicked.
I had been, really, really doing intense CrossFit for 2-3 years, thinking this is how I'm going to get, into the best shape of my life. Doing the triathlon, the zone 2, and I was swimming in the pool for maybe maybe 2 hours a week. At one point last year for a couple of weeks, I went to Dubai on holidays last Christmas in the best shape of my life for the least amount of effort I've ever put into it. So I'm really like a massive advocate for swimming, but there's a barrier if you don't know how to swim. It's quite a hard sport to get into because it is all about technique, and for most of us that technique does not come natural.
Yeah. I just
So
have
you
it now
do.
ingrained in my brain, Paulo. Reduce drag, increase power.
I'm teaching Adam now. Yes, reduce drag,
Yeah.
increase power. You can't
Yeah.
increase power until you figure out how to reduce your drag.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're learning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Swim lessons coming up next. But yeah, I guess before we wrap up, and the reason actually just why I asked you that question about kind of what's next, both short, medium, long term, is because I really like your attitude on that, how you're not just chasing and chasing performance, you're also chasing fun and enjoyment and
Chasing
uh
experiences,
yeah,
experiences.
that's a good way to put it. And I think that's something that a lot of people can take something from, myself included. And yeah, it keeps things novel, doesn't it? And you're doing the things that you love and enjoy and staying active and keeping healthy, and you're also getting increased performance out of it as well. And I think that's there's a lot to be said for that. And I think, like I said, lots of people can take something from that. So yeah, I suppose just before we wrap up, we've been going for 65 minutes now, which is brilliant. I suppose a few quick fire questions, if you don't mind. Um, so I've already touched on what's next. Did you have a worst run of the block?
Um, yeah, there was a toilet stop run that towards the end of training. Yeah, I think that's just every runner's worst nightmare during training and during a race. But yes, it can happen to the best of us.
Yeah, it's not good. I know every public bathroom in my local vicinity. Um, every single one. What is your go-to training shoe?
Repeat that again for us, Alan.
Do you have a go-to training shoe?
So I I've experimented. Nike never used to fit me, by the way, because I've not got wide feet, but I always found that Nike's toe box was smaller than most traditional shoes. But this is the first time I've ever really got into running shoes in my life. And I did most of my training with the. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not up to speed with these, but it was the Nike Zoom sixes. I'm not
Nike
sure,
Zoom
kind of
Fly 6.
Fly Six. Was brilliant. It
No,
it was
Paulo, Nike Zoom Fly 6.
Nike Zoom Fly Stick. They make the names so
I'm
flipping
just
complicated. Then I
I'm only
did
winding you up.
I did the race in the Alpha Flies. I thought that was a great transition because they're sort of they're two same brand, similar shoes, both carbon plated. Then I learned later on in training that probably should have had a daily shoe as well as the Zoom Six, and then as well as the race shoe, which I would implement next time if training. And they have that new Nike what's it, the training shoe that Nike has with the big cushioned almost like Hoka sole. Vomero.
Oh, yeah,
Vomero.
I think it's the Vomero Plus or the Vomero Premium. They have the standard Vomero, but then they've also released one which like is a really plush shoe. Yeah,
But yeah, the Nike used to never fit. But now I
but the
really
Zoom Fly was
enjoyed.
definitely one that worked well for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed using the Zoom Fly.
Brill. Do you have a pre-run or pre-race ritual slash superstition?
Pre-run ritual, bagel and honey. Every
Food.
time. I have 13 bagels sitting over here next to me. I have a little bagel corner, which is just here.
Oh, very nice,
It's
very
the
nice.
carb
So for
corner.
those that aren't watching, Paulo just showed us his carbohydrate slash bagel corner in his apartment there.
And I'm never too far away from honey.
Yeah, me and you both. Runner's
Honestly,
best friend.
it's runner's best friend. And even when you're starting to carb load, it's sort of like I can get 40 grams from this bagel and add another 30 grams in terms of honey, and that takes it to 70 grams. Wow. And it tastes good.
Yeah, I like how you're thinking. A lot of runners think the opposite and try to take away carbohydrate. We should be thinking about adding carbohydrates, particularly in and around our training. And you're absolutely right to do that. So, yep, I like that a lot. Um, do you have a dream race destination? Because I know we mentioned that marathon might be a limited venture, but do you have a dream race destination?
Um, I love traveling. Um, and I've never been to Japan. I've done bits of Asia, but I've never been to Japan. So maybe one day we could tick off the Tokyo Marathon. Maybe.
Yeah.
I've heard it's very hot
Japan.
and humid.
Yeah, Japan's my dream travel destination. Absolutely. Love it. And finally, then, could you sum up marathon training in one word?
That's really hard, Adam.
Sorry, I've put you on the spot, mate. I didn't prep you with these.
You said this would be easy. Um, hmm, exhilarating.
Yeah, I like it. Cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
Cool.
Absolutely loved it. It's time to
Cool.
go on to triathlon stuff now, though, for a bit.
Yeah, brilliant. No, Paula, that's been absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate you coming on and I guess watching your journey unfold and continue to unfold. So congratulations again from myself and Luke and all the listeners on your 251 marathon debut. Absolutely incredible. And again, just for me to watch you execute it in the way that you did is outstanding. So massive well done. And thanks a million for coming on.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having us on. Keep up the podcast. They're great.
Brilliant. Take care, guys.